Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Giridharadhari. Jai Gopijana Vallabha Giridharadhari. Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana. Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa. Rudikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Rudikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Page 394. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 30th day of November 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, text 13 on page 394. 394. Mahatmanas tu Mam Partha Daivim Prakritimashitaha Bhajanti Ananya Manaso Gyatva Bhutadim Avyayam Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Daivim Prakritimashitaha Bhajantyananya Manaso Gyatva Bhutadim Avyayam Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Daivim Prakritimashitaha Bhajantyananya Manaso Gyatva Bhutadim Avyayam Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Daivim Prakritimashitaha Bhajantyananya Manaso Gyatva Bhutadim Avyayam Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Daivim Prakritim Ashitaha Bhajantananya Manaso Gyatva Bhutadim Avyayam Bhajamano Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Daivim Prakritimashitaha Bhajantyananya Manaso Gyatva Bhutadim Avyayam. Manora? Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Daivim Prakritim Ashitaha Bhajantyananya Manaso Gyatva Bhutadim Avyayam. Anyone else? Not tonight. Okay. Synonyms. Maha Atmanaha, the great souls, two, but, Mam, unto me, Partha, O son of Pritha, Daivim, divine, Prakritim, nature, Ashitaha, having taken shelter of, Bhajanti, render service, Ananya Manasaha, without deviation of the mind, Gyatva, knowing, Bhuta, of creation, Adim, the origin, Avyayam, inexhaustible. Translation. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Purport. In this verse, the description of the Mahatma is clearly given. The first sign of the Mahatma is that he is already situated in the divine nature. He is not under the control of material nature. And how is this effected? That is explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. That is the qualification. One can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We're on page 394, if you're interested. Grab a book. In the middle of the first paragraph of the purport. That is the preliminary formula. I'll read it again. One can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the preliminary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of material nature, he is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Daivi Prakriti, divine nature. So when one is promoted in that way, by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of great soul or Mahatma. The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside of Krishna, because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma, or great soul, develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of a demigod or of a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna in Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in the unswerving service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, throughout the Bhagavad Gita and also the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find that the teachings are there by way of contrast. Just like if you want to see something, you see, if it's dark and light, then you can see the contrast and you can begin to see the outline of something. If everything is the same color, and it's difficult to discern, to make it. So Krishna's teaching, as all the great teachers in the Bhagavatam as well, through contrast. So if you go back a few verses, you find that Krishna has very strong words for those who deride him when he appears in the human form. They think that at best he's a human being, and frankly most people think that he's just a myth. Doesn't even exist. So what does he say about that? Abhajanandi, this is text 11. Abhajanandi ma mudha. You learn the word mudha after a while in ISKCON, and it means not very good. Probably use the word ass, meaning donkey, foolish. Abhajananti ma mudha manushim tonamashritam padam bhav majananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. So those fools, the fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. Now, in the previous verses, he's been describing his godly qualities, uniquely godly. Maya Jakshena Prakriti, the whole material energy is working under my supervision. Maybe not directly, but through his expansions. Remember, we're talking about the Vishnu expansion, beginning with Balaram, and then you have the Vishnu expansions for the creation, such we have in the corner here, Mahavishnu, and of course Paramatma, who's in everyone's heart and every atom, giving it. What does the Paramatma do? Sarvasa chahar mridisannivishto matak smritir jnanam abohanangsha. I am in the heart of everyone as the super soul, the Paramatma, and from me come knowledge and forgetfulness and remembrance. That's the way he directs everything. If for the animals, he's also giving the impetus. Go here, do this. But we call it instinct. How do the birds learn to fly? In 5 days, they come out and suddenly they're flying. The insects come out right away. They know what's their food, how to escape from the danger, and the mating, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So where's that knowledge coming from? They don't go to school, they're not trained, It's from instinct, it's from Krishna, it's from the Paramatma. So you can imagine just try to conceive of that. All of the countless living beings just on this one earth planet. And it goes throughout the universe, it's unlimited, trillions and billions of zillions. And every one of them is getting just the direction, act like this, do like this, like this. So this is one of Krishna's glories, and he's described others previously, how all the beings merge into me at the time of the dissolution, and they come out again, Bhutva, probably this phrase, Bhutva, Bhutva Paliyate, again and again destroyed, and again created, So there's all of these glories of Krishna. which we have to recognize. But and then the most amazing thing is that he also appears in this most delightful adolescent form, or even the baby form. We just had Mata Damodar was pointing out last night, that he covers all that magnificence so that he can enjoy these intimate rasas, these intimate relationships with his friends, with his parents, and other elders, with the gopis. If Mother Yashoda is thinking, oh, this little boy is the control of the whole universe, what happens to her rasa? You know, it happened, right? When she looked in his mouth, Krishna, he arranges all this. He's like a director. He's the protagonist in his lila, but he's also the director arranging. I got my point. So he ate some earth, right? And then Balaram and the other boys told on him, right? Because it's not good for him. You know, it's not good to eat earth. You know, children put everything in their mouth. So Mother Yashoda found out and said, "Have you eaten earth?" Balaram and the others say, "You eaten earth." They're lying. We had a quarrel, and now they're lying about me, trying to get me in trouble with you. Says, "Okay, open your mouth. I want to see." So he opens his mouth, and she sees the whole creation in there, all the universes. She also sees herself looking into the mouth of Krishna. So at that moment, the yoga maya that covers Krishna's glory, so they can have this intimate relationship, is torn away, and suddenly she says, "Oh, and I thought this was my boy, and he's Nanda's son." And I see, oh. But before she can get too far into that, he pulls down the cover of Yoga Maya again so that she can chastise him for eating earth, because that's what he wants to do. So this is what makes Krishna so lovable. Otherwise, it's all fear, awe, and reverence, and kind of fear. You know, that's super powerful, and that's mostly what people worship, right? Isn't that the Christian God, the stern God, the Punisher? You know, will smite you or smote you, as Bhadran Ramanuj like to say. But that's a very, you know, unpleasant rasa to have, fear and trembling. Okay, I'll do the right thing. You know, I don't want to go to hell. You know, that's not bhakti. That's not bhakti. So, but here in this chapter, at this time, at the end he says, no, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, he says, just worship me, become my devotee, honor me, you'll come to me, oh friend. I promise you this because you're my very, very dear friend. So that's the rasa speaking. So here we have some, you know, very contrast. You have the one who derives Krishna, doesn't recognize he exists, or that he's even if he's in a human form, he has all these superhuman qualities. And what's the result? Moga. Now, moga means bewildered. The text 12, mogasha, moga karmano, moga jnana vicetasa. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruit of activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. In other words, they just live for some time, they puff themselves up, they have, you know, they go to war, they die, whatever, and then they're vanquished, and all of their efforts at becoming happy and secure and successful are defeated. So that's the Muda-like demons, and Rakshasas he calls them. Now, the contrast, the Mahatmas. What's the difference? Daivim prakatimashrita. In the previous verse, the fools and rascals who deride Krishna, prakati mohinashrita. What's the contrast? Prakati mohini mashrita, or shrita, means to take shelter of the bewildering material energy. Now, what does that mean, to take shelter of? It means to identify oneself, first of all, as part of the material energy, because his body is nothing but a very complicated machine made of matter, obviously solid matter and liquids and air and some energy in there, and more subtle energies like mind, intelligence, ego. This is the ingredients for every body, every single body, including human bodies. So, but what makes it go, what makes it into a functioning organism, is the presence of the soul, the organizing principle. Just as in this big universe, Prabhupada has compared each body to its own little universe, you see. And we are the master of the universe, right? But actually, we're not perfect masters. And sometimes each of the cells has a little soul in there, because they grow, they do the thing, and then they die, and then they're like that. So we're like the master, right, of all these souls. And the cells, souls and cells, almost sounds the same. But we're not really. What happens when they get out of control? When one of the cells rebels, and it's like cancer or something, it's growing, you can't control it. We're on page 394. So the point is, we're an illusion to think that we're controllers. That's our whole problem. We think, yeah, I'm good. I got it under control. I got my job, my apartment, my wife, girlfriend, whatever. In other words, things are bad, but they could be worse. But really, yeah, they're going to get worse. And no matter how together you think it is, this delicate conglomeration of energy that you're thinking you're controlling is really under the control of the Lord, because it's part of the material energy. As he says in the previous verse, text 11, text 10, Maya Jakshena Prakati Suyate Sachadasana, which means under my supervision, this whole material energy is working. It's inconceivable how any one person can have that much intelligence and control, but that's what Krishna is. He is inconceivable. So, now where does that bring us? So the fools and rascals, the Rakshasas, the Asuras, the demons, they deride Krishna, they don't believe in Krishna, and they're defeated by the material energy. They're moga. Everything becomes defeated and frustrated. Bewildered. Okay. But on the other hand, you have the Mahatmas. And what's the distinguishing factor? Daivim Prakritim Ashrita. So this is as opposed to Mohinim Prakritim Ashrita, the bewildering energy. This is the whole contrast between the conditioned soul and the devotee, one who is on the right path, enlightened because he's had good association, he's heard and is attracted. So, Daivim Prakritim Ashrita, what does that mean? Because we have to take shelter, we have to come under the control of either the internal or the external energy. That's our choice. We can try to be masters and controllers, but all that means is we're under the control of the material energy. When we understand our true intrinsic nature, we agree voluntarily to be controlled by the internal nature. Now, what does that mean? It means that instead of trying to be independent and serve the demands of your own senses and mind, you find out what Krishna wants, what God wants, understanding that we're part and parcel of Him. This is a very interesting idea, understanding. Let me just divert for a minute. Krishna, obviously God, if He's all-powerful, He's got to be all-blissful. Why would He not be? He's full of ananda, right? Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha, second line of the Brahma Samhita. His body is eternal, His form is eternal, is full of bliss, full of knowledge, unlimited bliss, unlimited knowledge. Okay. So what about us? Where do we fit in? We are part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna says in the 15th chapter, Mamai Vangsho Jiva Loka Jiva Bhuta Sanata. All of these living entities, including us, are eternally His Anksha. This concept of Anksha is very important. And we have two very nice analogies. Every day, almost every day, the sun shines in the sky. Today it didn't shine. But we know it was there, right? So the sun, what does it do? The sun is in one place in the sky, but it's emanating all of this heat and light. That's what the sun does. When you think of the sun, you think a lot of light and sometimes a lot of heat. So that heat and light is the energy of the sun. And how does it manifest? Through the rays. And even the scientists, Prabhupada once, I heard him, the scientists, yes, Prabhupada, there are little photons, little distinct units of heat and light, So those little photons, probably subatomic or at least very, very small, they are anksha of the sun. They have the light, they have a little bit of light, they have a little bit of heat. And the sun has practically infinite light and heat. Similarly, Krishna is the supreme spiritual being. He's full of Satchidananda. right? It is eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. We are his Angsha, and by nature, in our natural state, this is all unnatural, being in a material body, we are also full of bliss and eternal, and full of knowledge, Satchidananda. So we've lost that nature. So the point is, if we can participate in Krishna's bliss, if we can give him some happiness, and in this age especially, just chanting Hare Krishna, like for 2 minutes, is giving Krishna happiness. Now, the idea is, as soon as we're meditating on it, as soon as we're thinking of him, glorifying him, and understanding him, anything in connection with Krishna is our natural state, and that service attitude, that's what it means to take shelter. It says, okay, I've taken shelter of so many things, but I've been cheated here and there, I'm still miserable. Let me try Krishna, right? And as soon as you sincerely try to become Krishna conscious, it's as simple as being conscious of Krishna, beginning with his holy name. I'm going to start emphasizing this when I give class. The whole thing begins with chanting this mantra, and whether it's in kirtan or japa, to really get the full benefit, you have to concentrate the mind to hear try to hear every syllable. We can do it. The mind has a certain habit of how should I say it? If something is experienced already, it says, okay, I've done that. Let me try something new. You see, and this is why maybe you hear the mantra again and again, and the mind starts to wander. The mind says, "Well, I heard that already," but you really haven't. You haven't heard it with absolute full concentration, complete absorption, samadhi, right? We're meant to be completely absorbed in the holy name, so that we can experience it. And that's why it's so nice to read some of the glorification of the chanting by the great souls who are experiencing it as it is. And they're inviting us to, you can do it also. You just follow this process. So I think this morning, or one of these mornings, we read every morning after Mangalartik a little section of a book called the Srinam Amrita, which is a selection of quotes from Prabhupada's books having to do with chanting the holy name, chanting Hare Krishna. So there's this one verse. When, hopefully not if, but when you read the CC, Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll come to the Antya Lila, the very first chapter. It's like the whole, it's such a wonderful chapter. There's so many quotes there from the Vidagdha Madhava and the Lalita Madhava. These are two plays written by Rupa Goswami. In the Antya Lila, it's all about Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri, basically. And Rupa Goswami would come all the way from Vrindavan, walking. They didn't walk, no trains, no buses, no even bullock carts. And they would walk down from Vrindavan, which is at least 1,000 miles, right, to Puri in Orissa. From Vrindavan to Orissa. So they'd make that trek just to spend time with Lord Chaitanya. So he was visiting Lord Chaitanya, spending some months, and along the way he decided to write this play about Krishna's Leela. And Vrindavan and Mathura and Dwarka Leela all in one big play, But he had a dream. And you know who came to him in the dream? Satyabhama. Satyabhama is one of Krishna's main queens in Dwarka. And she said, you should separate them, not mix the Dwarka Leela with the Vrindavan Leela. You should have one for Vrindavan Leela, one for Dwarka Leela. So, okay. So he gets to Puri, and Lord Chaitanya spontaneously says to him, I understand you're writing this play, but you shouldn't combine the two Leela, It should be Vrindavan Leela and Dwarka Leela. So how did he know what play I'm writing? He's omniscient, he's Krishna. Anyway, so there comes a point where Lord Chaitanya goes with his most intimate associates. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is there, Ramananda Roy, Sarup Damodar, I think Haridas Thakur, just a few, to see Rupa Goswami. And they want to know what kind of play you're writing. And he's very shy. He doesn't want to recite, so the Sarup Damodar takes some of the sheets and he starts reading them, and everybody goes into ecstasy, So this is not a play. This is a shower of nectar in the form of words, So one of the verses, the first verse he writes about the holy name, and it goes like this: Tunde tanda bandirating batanute tundavali labdehe Karna Krodha Kadambani Gadayate Karnarbudebhyakspiham Chetak Prangana Sangini Vijayate Sabindriyana Kutim No Jane Janitaki Yadbidamitai Krishneti Varna Dvai. Now the word Krishneti Varna Dvai means the two syllables Krishna. So the translation goes something like this. I don't know how much nectar these two syllables Krishna have produced. When I chant them, they seem to dance within my mouth. I want to have millions of mouths, millions of tongues to taste the holy name. When they enter my ears, I want to have millions of ears to drink in that sweet nectar of the sound. And when they enter the courtyard of my heart, all of my senses become inert. I can become, frozen in ecstasy, and my mind becomes filled with the highest bliss. I don't know how much. So now, when we chant, honestly, I don't have that same experience when I chant. I've been chanting 50 years. I still don't have, That's because, I'm not pure enough. But this is available to everyone. The point is, we can come to that stage where we don't want to stop chanting. Oh, the japa period is over? Oh, okay, we'll have another kirtan, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And there's so many verses like that. How does it go? There's a devotee. You remember Palada Priya. You remember? His son? And his son. He has this wonderful son who grew up, who's now named Mahotsa, not Mahotsa. What is it? Madhuripura. That, not many all devotees know, but that, as soon as I heard his name, I said, oh, that's from this verse. Vaisheshika gave him this, he knows all these verses. This is from the last verse of the Namashtaka by Rupa Goswami. All glories to the holy name. So it's very sweet. It's got a far beat. Narada Vino Jivana Sadormi Niryasa Madhuri Pura Tvam Krishna Nama Kamam Spudame Vasane Vasena Sada. Which means that O holy name, you are the inspiration for the Vina of Narada. Narada Vino Jivana. Sudormi means waves of nectar. Niryasa Madhuri Pura. You're like a flooding river of the most consecrated, sweetest nectar. Please appear on my tongue. Please always appear on my tongue with the greatest taste. In other words, may I never lose my taste for you, and may I taste you more and more sweet. So this prayer, you can pray to the holy name. There's a wonderful biography of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur that was written by Bhakti Vikas Swami. It's free. It's published as three-volume books. A friend of mine in Alachua, who used to be here, Param Brahma, you remember Param Brahma? Who became what is it? My brain is going. Anyway, he got reinitiated at a certain point. So, and he's up for sannyas. So he gave me that. He gave me that 3-volume set. Very nice, and I have it on my shelf. But then Bhakti Vikas Swami just made it available. I can send you the PDF if you want. Exhaustive biography. And one of the sections has to do with Bhaktisiddhanta's recommending the glorification of the holy name. Because we always have to remember, one of the most inconceivable facts, and something that is, a great impetus to chant, and that is that the holy name is non-different from Krishna. When you chant those syllables, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, you're associating with Krishna. You may not realize it, but that's why it's so potent. What does he say? Lord Chaitanya, who's Krishna himself, says in the second verse of the Shikshastika, which we should all know. Nam namakadi bahudani dasarva shaktis tatrapita niyamitak smaranena kalaha. Etadrishi tava kripa bhagavan mamapi durdaivami dasamihajani nanuraga. Now Lord Chaitanya, taking the role of a sadhaka, to teach us, he laments in the last part, oh, alas, I have no taste for the holy name. Lord Chaitanya is saying that. But what does he say? I put it into a poem. He says, Krishna, Govinda, and Keshava too, your names have no end, and in each of them you have invested your potencies, leaving none out. Whenever we want, we can chant them without the slightest restriction of time or of place. O Lord, who can fathom your infinite grace? But I am so wretched and devoid of all shame that I haven't developed a taste for your name. So how to get that taste? Next verse. Because the next verse teaches us how we can be blessed so that We can chant all the time. You never want to stop chanting. If you're experiencing, it's just like, how many times have I sat down, back when I was in the first year, more than a year, of my career in Krishna consciousness, we had some of the best cooks. Apurva was there in Brooklyn, Mangalananda, who we all know as a singer, but he was a tremendous cook as well. Bhadra, who was, I think, Parik's wife, the painter. Anyway, they had learned, directly from Prabhupada, or from those who learned directly from Prabhupada, from Yamuna and Palika. So every meal was just, especially Sunday, oh my God. So it's very hard to control. When the Sunday comes around, we're in this house, it's like a double, it's big enough for accommodating all of us, but it's winter time or something in the winter, so all of the fragrance is coming up from the cooking from the kitchen. So anyway, you sit down, and before you know it, you've had your thirds in halva and your second, the second. So what is that? That's indication. Okay, that's what the senses do. When you really get, into some enjoyment like that, then you tend to overdo it, right? So, but the principle is coming from spiritual. It means that if you're enjoying, you want to keep enjoying, but the senses have their limits, and if you overdo it with then you enter into the suffering department. But if it's spiritual, there's no suffering. If you can come to that point where you're relishing the service centered on chanting the holy name, why stop? It's there's no limit to it. Even if you're sleeping, Prabhupada would always say 24 hours a day. You can be sleeping and serving Krishna, in your original Siddha Swarup, in your dreams. And then it comes waking time, and you're living on two planes. The great devotees living within, they're serving Krishna in their Swarup. Externally, they're doing so many things to spread the Sankirtan movement. Prabhupada showed how to do that. And it shows in any condition, there's that equipoise, there's that inner reality which can't be shaken. He was beyond fear. Several times he was threatened, and famously by the Naxalites in Calcutta. They're communists, they're revolutionaries, they're terrorists actually. And Prabhupada was having a big pandal in Calcutta. So they came and they got a note passed to Prabhupada, fly or die. The devotees are freaked out, So Prabhupada says, that's all right. Hold the pandal over here. So they came, and Prabhupada immediately gave them some nice seats to sit on, I said, okay, they got nice seats. And then he started chanting the Brahma Samhita, And they're also, not devotees, but they could respond to that. That was pacifying. And then he talked to them personally, and he said, yeah, actually, we're for spirit, because they're communists. The communists had a big role, And he said, we're into spiritual communism. And he explained how, And when I joined, because I was raised as a communist, I won't go into detail, but Orthodox, communist, Marxist, I learned from my father. But there's one, phrase, one little motto, I don't remember all that stuff, but one of the things is, they're ideal, from each according to his abilities, to each according to his needs. The all-merciful state will be, they own everything, and then everyone can be engaged according to his varna and ashram. They don't use those words, but that's the idea. And whatever you can contribute, then you'll get what you need, and everyone will be happy, and like that. So what is, what is ISKCON society? That's the whole idea. Yes, you do what you can, for Krishna, and your needs are provided, and most importantly, your spiritual needs are provided, and you can therefore become satisfied, because you're ideally experiencing more and more bliss from just serving Krishna, being Krishna conscious. And that's the real nourishment of the soul. That's what counts. Anyway, but we have to take shelter. That Daivim Prakriti Mashita means that the Mahatmas, the great souls, they're always conscious of Krishna, and they're working to please him. So there's so many ways of chanting the holy name at different times of the day. in the morning, do the japa and meditation, the artik, and whatever you can do. And during the day, to also be aware of Krishna. Okay, I'm working and I'm supporting my household, but at the same time, I'm doing it for Krishna because we'll give so much Lakshmi to the temple, or we'll do so much service. In other words, your life is geared toward devotional service. Not towards serving the external energy in the form of your material desires and all of these different things. That's what it means to take shelter. The Mahatmas take shelter of the internal energy, and they worship me without deviating mind. This is the ideal. Bhajanti ananya manaso. Ananya manaso means any other mentality. They give that up. Ananya manaso. Because Gyatva Bhutadamaviyam, they understand that I am the source of all and that I am inexhaustible. Now this is, again, the first stages of bhakti, awe and reverence. We understand God is all-powerful and He's all-merciful. Thank God He's also all-merciful. If He wasn't, then we'd be really in trouble. But He has no reason to exploit us. He's self-satisfied, But, so what is His motivation? He loves us. He loves us unconditionally. And you say, how come there's so much suffering? Because there's so much rebellion against Him, and we have to learn that that's not a platform of happiness. We can never be happy that way, because the force of time is always pushing us toward destruction. Whatever we may have in this world, we have a little platform of enjoyment and peace, This weight, time is going to destroy that, And, this crazy world we live in, we're sitting here, but we just went through this whole thing with this, the pandemic, right? And it's still not over. And there are other diseases that are waiting in the wings, and everything is fine. Well, let's go to Hawaii and, we'll just swim. There's a volcano, as we sit here, the biggest volcano in the world is going off. And then people are wondering, gee, is it going to come to this part of the island or this side? There's no peace here. It can't be. It can only be the illusion of that for some time. So whatever time we have, we should try to come to this platform of Mahatma. Daivim Pakadamashita. We can also worship Krishna and come to the point of Ananya Manasa, because we understand that yes, He is the source of all creation, and He is inexhaustible. He never dies. And then the next verse is Prabhupada would quote all the time, because people want to know, where does all this chanting come from? That's not in the Bhagavad Gita. There was one professor who wrote Prabhupada about this. We see your disciples, they're chanting on the campus so much, but that's not in the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada said, yes, it is. The next verse. So any questions on text 13, and we can go on to text 14. Okay, go ahead.
And
yeah, speaking to them because the people are online.
So Maha is great, and then you mentioned yoga Maya and Maya. It's distraction or illusion. Can you explain the difference of and then when that happens, how do we know when we're being distracted into the material world? Away from God, of what's good, of what this verse is telling us.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure it's all there in this verse, but your ideas are right. The word Maha means great, just like we have the Maha mantra. There are many mantras, and many of them are, perfectly fine, but none of them is as powerful as this Maha mantra, and it's recommended in the Vedas. I can quote chapter and verse for you. So why is it so Maha? Because it's the most efficacious way. It's very powerful. And if you chant this particular mantra, then you're counteracting the ills and evils of this Kali Yuga in the most efficacious way. That's the verse. Iti Shodashakam Nam Nam, 16 names. These 16 names, the 16 if you can. Iti Shodashakam, Kali Kalmasha Nashanam. Nashanam means to destroy. And Kali is this age of Kali, which produces so much Kalmasha. What is Kalmasha? Kalmasha is impurity, suffering, negativities, all of this stuff. And bad karmic reactions. So that can all be counteracted by this mantra. You can search through all the Vedas and you won't find a more effective way of counteracting this age. So don't we want that? Just like if during the pandemic, you wanted to buy the strongest, right, antibacterial soap, right? In fact, I remember, I was blessed. I'm blessed by the pandemic, but I didn't really have to change my lifestyle at all very much because I was already working at home, alone. All I had to put on the mask when I went to Sprouts or something. But anyway, so I was looking for what was the stuff I used to get? Tilex. It's a powerful cleanser for the bathroom. So you get maybe a couple of quarts for maybe $10. So I go to Ace Hardware to try to get it. $35. Because there's such demand for Tilex, which kills all the germs, So that's a Maha cleanser, you can say, So Maha Atma, a great soul, someone who has this description. Bhajanjananya Manaso, just that one phrase is something to be worshipped, is something to strive for. To worship Krishna, having your mind and senses absorbed in Krishna without deviation. Ananya Manaso. This is the samadhi described in the 6th chapter. You remember we went through, those of you who have been coming to class for a while, there's a 6th chapter, that's the yoga chapter, that's the dhyana yoga. And it's the classic yoga that we knew even before Prabhupada came. You sit for meditation, you do the asanas so you can sit nicely and be very comfortable, a little pranayama, control the mind, and then concentrate on the heart. Of course, we're just playing at doing it. But Krishna was, go alone to the Himalayas, sit on a certain, keep the neck, and look at the tip of the nose. I could never do that. And in this way, control the mind and fix it on me in the heart. Ultimately, it's the same thing. To come to the point of constant remembrance and absorption in thoughts of God, of Krishna. But for us, 1 in a million, 10 million can even try to do that successfully. But Hare Krishna is for everybody. Everybody come in the kirtan, more the merrier. And chant the mantra. Here's the mantra card, see it's up there. And you're doing yoga. You're absorbed, right? And to help you keep, the mantra, get the beat going. It's all very scientific. There's something called, what is that? I forget what it's called, but there's a phrase in Sanskrit that refers to singing and dancing and playing musical instruments. Now those, if you think about it, that can be a lot of maya in that. Think of the rock concerts and all that, singing and dancing and playing musical instruments. So Lord Chaitanya took those 3 things and he turned it into yoga. What are we doing? We're singing, dancing, and playing musical instruments. But it's all centered on the mantra. It's all centered on transcendence. And that's why if you get into it, anybody, and Prabhupada proved it. He went to the West where nobody knew anything about anything, and hippie era, everyone was contaminated. But they're willing to listen and try something new. And so those who tried the Hare Krishna, whoa, something's going on here. Let's go back. And then they go back, and then the Sunday feast, and before you know it, he had a temple, a little storefront full of serious devotees. So this is for us. This is for us Kali Yugites who need something accessible, possible, and the more you get into it, the more meaningful it is, and the more right it is. So the answer is that that Mahamaya means the powerful energy, Krishna's bewildering energy. Mahamaya is actually the expansion of Yogamaya. Yogamaya is Krishna's energy that covers not Krishna, but covers his magnificent, all-powerful nature, like I was explaining, so he can appear as a little child before Mother Yashoda. Now he withdrew that Yogamaya for a minute when she looked in his mouth. And I told that story, and then she suddenly realized, oh, this is God. What have I been doing? I thought he was my little son. So Krishna didn't like that, so he pulled down the curtain of Yogamaya again. So Yogamaya doesn't hide Krishna, but hides his magnificence, so you can become more intimately related to Krishna. But Mahamaya hides Krishna altogether, because we want to try to be imitation Krishnas. But Mahamaya also gives us the punishment. Mahamaya means, okay, now you're identifying with this material body. That means you are thinking you're going to go through old age and disease and death and all of the threefold miseries because you think you're this body. So, but Krishna comes or sends his representative to wake us up from yoga, from Mahamaya, and bring us into Yogamaya ultimately. So that's what this, everything we're doing here with this Bhagavad Gita. It says don't waste your time. Don't embrace the material body as yourself, because you'll just suffer again and again. Krishna doesn't want that. But understand yourself to be a soul, an eternal servant of God, and then learn how to engage this very body, which is a result of Mahamaya, in the service of Krishna, so it becomes spiritualized. And that's why the great souls, the great acharyas like Srila Prabhupada, their bodies are so spiritualized and spiritual that they don't burn. We bury. When we talk about Prabhupada's samadhi in Vrindavan, that's where his form is interred. And the great soul. Even our sannyasis, they also do the same thing. So there's a lot to learn there. Okay, so the next verse is so important. I'm going to let that, this is about Satatam Kirti, because what do the Mahatmas do? Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. Kirti, we know what Kirtan. They're always chanting my glories. That's the first thing. And endeavoring with great admit. So we'll read that one on Wednesday. And so I've left a little time for a few little poems. Oh, first questions. Go ahead. No. That's all right.
These verses that were read from today, I feel that they're on the very opposite ends of the spectrum. Like either you're don't believe in God or you're a Mahatma. Is there any like gray space within that?
Yeah. As I said at the beginning of the class, he's teaching by the contrast, so we can see the different poles. And there's one pole, they deride Krishna. I mean, these are the demons. They don't understand. Krishna kills them all right in Vrindavan. They don't know that he's God. They don't want to think that he can defeat them. That with the tip of his finger. They want to think of him as a little fragile little boy that will take no care of him. But they all get killed. So yeah, that's the Rakshasas and the Asuras, that are arch enemies of God. But we're not like that. Maybe we're like that in the previous birth, or we were ignorant. But we're trying to be devotees. So we're not deriding Krishna, but we have to positively study about Krishna, learn about Krishna, glorify Krishna, and serve Krishna. And the more that we do that, the more that we purify our heart, to purify our senses, so we can aspire to this Mahatma stage. You see, in other words, we revere the Mahatmas like Srila Prabhupada. They're ideals, and we could see every moment of the day, whether he's talking on the phone, or he's talking to people personally, or he's writing, or he's worshiping or chanting. He's always glorifying Krishna, he's always serving Krishna. And he's working very hard to give us the opportunity to do it. So those are the two lines, is that, I've just been working on, actually we've just been reading in the morning, that a Jamil, a Jamil is a nice example of someone who fell away from devotion, and he became covered, and he became demonic, except for the fact, that he was named his son Narayan, and he was still chanting. So that was his saving grace. But he was covered over again by Mahamaya. And then he had that experience, shocking experience of almost being ripped out of his body by the Yamadutas and dragged off to hell. But because he was chanting the name Narayan, although he was chanting his son's name, but it's still, the name is so powerful that the Vishnudutas came and saved him, and he got a second chance. And he just has a wonderful, what we would call in a play, a soliloquy, where he's, saying, oh, I was, so fortunate I had such a wonderful wife and an opportunity, but I wasted it all. I became like a demon. I was, who could be more sinful than me? He's very repentant. And so now he says, now I'm going to, just serve the Lord and try to be a friend to everybody by giving them Krishna consciousness. And so he's completely reformed. So the idea is that we can, by contrast, Krishna is showing the two poles here. But we can move voluntarily and put our demonic nature behind us, if you will, and by the process of purification, learn to change our whole outlook on life and our whole character. That's what Krishna consciousness is. It's a reform, and it's purification. So, yeah, we shouldn't be, I mean, when I first read the Bhagavad Gita, I very much identified with the 16th chapter, because that was more or less who I was, what I've been. That's where not the divine part of it, the demonic part of it, which is. And I said, okay, I can see that. And then at the end, it says, well, and it's getting late. He says, Trivadam Nadakasedam Dvaram Nashanamamana. He describes hell. He says there's 3 gates leading to this hellish existence. Lust, anger, and greed. Those who are wise give these up. And he says, God, he says those who have been able to give up these 3 things, they work only for their welfare. Trivadam Nadakasedam Dvaram Etava Mukta Konteya Tamo Dvaraisti Tibinaraha Archadatyatmanakshaya Tato Yati Padam. So here's the contrast, that those who would control under the material desire and anger, Kama quoted 1621, and greed, they have to give those up, otherwise they're going to hell. And those who have become free of those, they work only for their ultimate good. On the other hand, those who give up the Shastra injunctions and simply act according to their own whims attain neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. Therefore, one should understand what is duty, what is not duty, by the regulations of the scripture. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may be gradually elevated. And that's this whole movement. If you accept the scripture, Krishna Prabhupada's books, and you try to act according to them, then you make progress away from your ignorant, suffering nature, demoniac nature, and you become, from the demon, you can become a saint. So we should, but you have to accept the Shastra as your pramana, your evidence for how to act and how not to act. That's the whole key. And the Shastra says at 8:15 we have an arti, and we should be attendant. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. Somehow I always run out of time.